I'm Tiffany Rosenbaum, and I'm the host of At Home Money. I help moms start their own dream side hustles and businesses, and one way I do that is through sharing successful female-led business stories like the one you're about to hear today. If you want to learn more about working with me or any of the guest speakers, please check out the links in the description. Let's meet today's guest, Grace Handzlik with Dozers Pet Academy. Hi, Grace. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for so much for agreeing to be on the podcast today. Who's that you have there with you?
This is Dozer. He's my buddy. He's my service dog and the first service dog that I ever trained.
That's wonderful. Oh, I love him. All right, we're just going to get started. Can you go ahead and just tell me a little bit about what your business is and how you got started doing it?
Sure. So I own Dozer's Pet Academy. What it is I train animals. We do a lot of dogs, but I do work with any animal you can own in Indiana. So I've worked with chickens and I do a little bit of livestock, surprising number of cats, so that kind of thing. I come to people's houses, so I don't actually have a brick and mortar, but I go to you for training or we meet somewhere public, which adds a new element to training that's really valuable in certain situations. I do train basic obedience all the way up to service and working animals. So I have a very wide range of skills that allows me to tackle my clients' problems.
So you said that you train chickens. What does it look like to train a chicken? What do people want their chickens to do?
Honestly, the most interesting question I get about chickens is why does my rooster attack me? And that's what roosters
Okay.
are supposed to do. There are some things that you can do to help make the rooster understand that you're not the threat. I always find it a little funny when people who have all these chickens and they get a rooster and they're upset when their rooster is aggressive. Well, the rooster is supposed to be aggressive. That's the point of a rooster. So, we do a lot of trying to help the rooster bond to the human so that they don't see that person as a threat anymore, which roosters are surprisingly capable of discerning between the caretaker human and a possible threat. So, actually, chickens are very smart. We had about 50 of them. They were free range when we lived on the
Uh-huh.
farm. And free range, they didn't have a cage they went into. They had a coop they went into at night, and we would stand in the yard and yell, "Here, chickie, chickie," and all 50 of them chickens would come running wherever you were.
Aw, that's cute. My uncle has like 10 of them, so that's the only time I ever get to be around chickens. But
Yeah.
yeah, they chase my car around and they don't attack though, but they don't have any roosters.
Yeah, we had a mixture, and our roosters never bothered me. I was the main caretaker, or my mom, who was also a main caretaker. But my brother, who never went out in the yard where they were, if he went out and he got too close, then sometimes they would get a little aggressive with him because they didn't know him. So they were
Yeah,
very much
that's
able to
understandable.
discern.
Any animal would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how did you get started with your business and what did that look like in the beginning?
So I have PTSD and a few other disabilities that had me not able to work for a period of years. And so I
Okay.
decided I wanted to return to the workforce that I had improved enough to do so. So I tried getting a job and it was really hard. I mean, I'm a middle aged woman who has a service dog, and that's not something people are in high demand for. So
Mhm.
I went to vocational rehab
Yeah.
and I applied for services, and my thought was they can help me find a job that would meet my needs where I would do well.
Mm.
Well, there's a waiting period, and the waiting period is kind of long. I think for me it was about 2 months, but halfway in between that I had seen things online and I had trained Dozer by this point, and I knew that I could fix those things. People were getting rid of their pets or putting them down. And so I just put out this, posted in groups on Facebook, "Meet me at the park, 20
Mhm.
bucks, I'll train your dog." And
Yeah.
within a month, I had only posted this one time in a bunch of different groups. I had 30 people that I was seeing
Wow.
on a week to week basis. And I was fixing their problems. And it was not hard for me. It wasn't, I mean, I've been interested in animals my whole life. That's like my thing. So none of this was difficult. So when vocational rehab called and they're like, "Congratulations, you got accepted, you're sick enough that you need help but well enough that we
No.
think you can do something." I says, "Well, I did a thing." And they're like, "What'd you do?" And I told them about it, and they're like, "Huh, do you want to make it a business?" I said, "Yes, I do." So turns out vocational rehab has a small business program where they help you start up your own small business. I mean, I've never gone to school for business.
Mhm.
I had never really thought about opening my own business because, that's scary and it was
Yeah.
terrifying. I mean, it was absolutely 100% terrifying, but I prayed about it
Hmm.
and I followed their rules. And here I am, started my business in 2023, and we've been growing every year.
That's wonderful. That's a very good success story just starting out the gate there. But I'm sure that it makes you feel secure knowing that the business is there and that the demand is there. So that's wonderful. When you were training Dozer before all of this, where did you get your knowledge that you were using to train him?
So it's kind of funny, but it actually goes way back to when I was very, very little. I don't remember when I started doing this, but what I did was we lived down the street from the Wanata Public Library, and that was my second home. And I would get books on training animals. And a lot of these books were majorly outdated, especially by today's standards, and I would try.
Yeah.
So when I was
Mhm.
9 years old, we got a puppy, and my grandparents sent me off to basic obedience with the puppy as a gift to me. And I loved it.
Mhm.
And I learned the basics of training. And that summer, I made a harness for my dog, and I taught my dog to pull me around on a scooter using verbal commands. Not with the help of a trainer. I did that on my own because I just understood. And I've always been the person you could always find me outside with the pets, whatever we were doing. So I just naturally would research it. I loved Animal Planet. I've watched a lot of shows about trainers, some that I agree with, some that I disagree with, but I just used all the resources that I could. When I started training Dozer, I didn't know you could train your own service animal. To me, training a service animal was like, there's no way I can do that. Like that's really high level training, but he was a
Mm.
bait dog originally. And so the
Mhm.
trainers around here wouldn't help me. They all told me to put him down, and I wasn't going to do that. So I did the research. I made sure it was government websites that I was getting the information from. But I found out you can train your own service animal and that he met the qualifications to do so. And
Mhm.
so I just did what felt right. And what I didn't know or couldn't figure out, I researched until I found something that felt right.
Yeah, that's really, really awesome. You seem like a go-getter. So obviously you don't need any type of certifications or anything on your end to be able to teach, right? Teach
No,
the dogs?
you don't. But there are a lot that you can get. You
Yeah.
actually don't need a certification or anything to have a service dog. It's not a requirement for service dogs to be certified in any way, shape, or form. All the stuff that says if you certify your dog, it can be a service dog and you can take it everywhere, those are scams.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they're spreading false information, especially about whether or not an emotional support animal has public access rights. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing that I fight for in my business. But when it came down to being a trainer for the public, I did a lot of research, and there are so many licensing organizations, but there are zero requirements to have one. And I think
Yeah.
this is just a way to try to make service animals more accessible to the people who need them the most.
Yeah. It's very similar. I have background in the dog grooming industry and it's very similar. Like everybody thinks you need to be certified or a licensed groomer and some states you do, but not in the state of Indiana. So like my mom who ran the shop and me, like we were not certified groomers, but we were all self-taught. So now when a dog does become a service animal, do they have like a certificate themselves or no? Like do you have something that you can prove that he's a service animal if you go out and somebody questions it?
No, Dozer doesn't have anything to show he's a service dog. So, how this works is that if I go to a store, they can ask
Uh-huh.
me two questions. According to the ADA, these questions are put out very specifically. The first is whether or not he's a service animal for a disability, which I have.
Mhm.
And that makes sure that A, that I'm the handler, that I have a
Mhm.
qualifying disability, and that he is a service animal, not emotional support
Yeah.
or therapy. If I say no to that, then they have the choice to deny me access. The second
Okay.
question is, what tasks is he trained to perform? And this is where things get a little tricky. I legally can say he performs grounding behavior. Some people know what that is, some people don't. I don't have to explain what it is. I do not have to show you what it is. I don't have to tell you anything besides that. And the reason being is because in order to explain what grounding behavior is, I have to tell you what my health problem is. And I
Yep,
don't
the
have to
HIPAA
do that.
thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, I could say he, forces me to interact with him when I start getting anxious, but again, that tells you what my problem
Mhm.
is. And I don't like to do that. So,
Yeah.
if somebody is asking me very nicely and is not coming at me like I'm a person doing absolutely everything wrong, I will usually tell them a little bit more about it because I don't mind teaching people. But
Mhm.
I've had 911 called on me for having him in a place where I was allowed to have him and he wasn't breaking any rules. So,
Yeah.
I mean, having all that, I'm picky about who I tell what to.
Yeah, I
When
would be
it
too.
Right. So when it comes to whether or not he's allowed to do or how people know, it's really through their actions. Every single time he goes out in public with me, he's being tested. If he acts
Mhm.
aggressive, if he's barking a lot, now he's allowed to bark to alert me to things, and he does. Part of what he does is
Yeah.
he's hyper vigilant. And if something seems weird to him, which sometimes it's weird to him and not to anybody else, but that's okay. If it's weird to him, he'll give an alert bark. He's allowed to do that. Generally, I allow up to 3. Anything past 3, and I take him out right away. He
Yeah.
almost never has a problem with only 3 barks, unless he really thinks something is a threat, in which case he's trying to get me to leave the area for any specific threat. So
Yeah.
that's how, if we went to Walmart and he's growling at people and pulling me all over the place and peeing on the floor, they're allowed to tell me whether or not I have a certification or not. They're allowed to say that dog can't be here anymore. Now they can't stop
Yeah.
me from coming back in, but they can prevent him from being there. And so that's really, I
Yeah.
mean, a service dog is tested every day. And like I said, the certification, I mean, if I have it, it doesn't matter whether he's certified or isn't certified. If he
Yeah.
misbehaves, they still have the same legal right.
Yeah. No, all of that makes really much sense now that you explain it. I've never really had much experience around servicing animals or anything like that, but what you were saying about what they can ask you, it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World, but they have their disability DAS pass and you have to interview in order to qualify for that, and you are not allowed to tell them at all what your disability is, and they're not allowed to ask you. And they only ask you like basically what basic symptoms do you have basically that would keep you from standing in line, and then they make their
Right.
decision based off of that, which can kind of make it hard, but in a way it makes sense because it protects you as well.
Right. I actually have the experience of being there and having that. When we went, we had family members with us. I was healthy at the time, but we had family members with us who did have trouble. And their process, from what I can remember, when I was actually a teenager, but it was
Mhm.
actually simple and non-invasive. I mean, yeah, they asked some
Yeah.
questions, but like it wasn't a bad thing. And I really feel like the people who came up with that and went through that, they did a really good job of maintaining privacy while ensuring that it was being used for the correct purposes. And they
Yeah.
actually now they have kennels at each of your rides that dogs can't go on. And so if you have
Oh,
a service animal, you can put your animal in the kennel at the ride. And so then you can go on the ride and when you get out, you just take your dog out of the kennel.
that was wonderful. I didn't know that. Now, the DAS pass has gotten a whole lot harder though. Like we went a little over a year ago, and even then it was, I mean, we needed it for my son and he got approved, but like we're in all the Disney groups now, and since we have been, they have made it a whole lot harder. They like are denying people who have been approved for the DAS pass for like 20 years, and now all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, I don't think you're disabled enough." And it's like you can't tell them. They won't listen if you tell them, like, even if you willingly tell them what your disability, you could tell them like, "Hey, I don't have a second leg. I can't, stand."
Right.
And like they're denying people anyway. So like because so many people were finding ways to misuse it, now they're just like
Right.
denying people left and right, which is sad. And I don't know if it's true or not. I heard that they were getting sued for that. So,
No, it
but
wouldn't surprise me.
it needs totally revamped. But like I get the process and it makes total sense. So,
Honestly, the state of disability issues in our country is very worrying. The reason being is, when I was a kid, you learned about service animals in school. Like that was a part of schooling. You learned not to touch them and give them space. And
yeah.
I don't know if none of that stuck or we're just not teaching that anymore because I have a lot of really troubling interactions with general public, even from people who should know better. I mean, I've had people trying to call Dozer desperately. I mean, everything that they can while I'm checking out at a store. And I'm not talking about like a pet store. I'm talking about like Walmart or Meijer, where
Yeah.
you know that, dogs aren't usually allowed here, so that dog's probably working. I've had people cuss me out for having him. I've had people follow me around and yell shame because of the equipment that he wears. which is not harmful to him at all. But they didn't know what it was, and therefore they thought they should shame me. But besides that, we have people who do abuse the system a
Yeah.
lot. So when you have somebody like me, if you looked at me on any given day, for the most part, I look pretty healthy, especially if you ignore the fact that Dozer's a service dog. But in reality, there are a lot of things that I deal with, and I do great with them. I will tell you, some of my friends have trouble keeping up with me because I am a go, 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 and I want to keep doing what I can for as long as I can.
Mhm.
But there are times where walking into that store is really, really hard. And,
Yeah.
there are times where getting through training is it's all I can do that day. And I love what I do and I'm able to do that. But
Yeah.
sometimes that's all I can do. And people look at me and they think, oh, you must just be abusing the system. But I'm not.
I never got that opinion with you. Like, I have seen people out and about, and I literally thought they are totally there's no way that is a
Right.
service dog. But, I mean, even before you and I talked, I never got and I don't know if that's reassuring you at all, but I never
It
got the
is,
feeling
it
that
is.
you were
You see somebody park in a handicap parking spot that has 2 legs and is younger and can walk, and you don't realize the fact that sometimes I have heart issues to a point that walking from my car to that store is difficult, but you can't see that,
Yeah.
So, we judge each other, and the fact of the matter is people have seen too many people abuse the system, and when I can manage it, when I can do the extra walking, I save those spots for someone else and I
Yeah.
do my due diligence. But unfortunately, yeah, everyone has gotten skeptical and weary because people that don't need it have ruined it for the people that do.
Yeah. Have you found that those shaming issues or the issues that you have found are better or worse in some locations or stores than maybe others?
Yes and no. There's not a whole lot of difference, but there are some places that I'm like, okay, there's going to be a problem here, and I can sort of tell. For instance, my sister used to live out by Chicago. I think it was Oak Park, and I would go out and visit her all the time. The people in that area did not understand service animals at all.
Yeah.
None. There was a store next to her apartment that was owned by maybe immigrants, or I think they were Indian or something, but I don't know that they were born in this country because they had a very thick accent. He insisted that I wasn't allowed to have my dog in there. He never did anything about it, but he would follow me around this little teeny tiny 7-Eleven type store.
Yeah.
And he would tell me, and I would tell him he's a service dog, and then he would just follow me. And Dozer wouldn't do anything, and the guy never particularly bothered me. I think he saw me enough to eventually realize it's okay. But I would try to tell him, no, in this country, that's allowed. He's allowed to do that. And it was usually, I mean, going in for bread, so it was not like I was there for a long time. However, stores with higher income levels, which I mean maybe sounds degrading or something, but let's face it, there are income levels. And when I go to a store that caters to those kinds of people, I tend to have fewer issues. I don't know if it's because they mind their own business or they just don't care. I don't know if it's education related. I can go to Walmart in Valpo and have issues from the second I walk into that store. But I can go to Meyer in Valpo, which is not that far away, and I'm welcomed and there's no problems. And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily the employees, although sometimes it is. It's just the people. It's a different demographic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it varies. I will say the Walmart out by Oak Park, there was a guy who was very excited and he wanted to know how he could get a service dog because he wanted to bring his dog to the store. And he worked there. And I can tell you, this is a common thing. People just want to bring their dogs everywhere, which,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
pro
and
that
that's
for the most
why
part.
things are the way they are right now,
Right. I mean, I'm pro let's bring dogs places, but they should
right?
also be trained well, right? Like I'm an animal
Mhm.
trainer, so of course I like dogs. But the guy, when I told him that, I says, "Okay, well, do you have a disability?" And he goes, "Wait, I need a disability." And this, I mean, folks, this is a Walmart employee here who's
Yeah.
asking me, and he's genuinely surprised that he needs a disability to have a service dog. I mean, I totally just destroyed his world with this one simple fact of service dogs require a disability. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, he does not get to take his dog to work. But yeah, there's all kinds of things. And sometimes it's more somebody's following me around and asking me 5 million questions because they want one and they don't understand. And I'm a little more lenient with that. I generally don't mind sharing information,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of really bad, I mean, mean, I've been denied access places, I've been assaulted, I've had 911 called on me, all because I have a disability which requires a service dog. And I will tell you outright that when I was assaulted, it was a lady who grabbed my clothing and pulled me, and my dog was calmly by my side. And this is a dog who, if you come up to the wrong side of my car while I'm sitting in it, he'll make sure you know he's there. Not because
Yeah.
he's aggressive, but because he's a dog.
That's what he's trained to do.
Right. And I mean, but he knows when he's got his vest on, he's working.
Yeah.
And I didn't show that I was in significant enough distress for him to react. And that's good training. That's what your service dog should be able to sit calmly while somebody manhandles you,
Yeah.
because that they're not supposed to be a threat to the public. And
Mhm.
so I actually have that on video. It just goes to show he wasn't doing anything wrong. There was no reason.
Yeah.
So that's the discrimination I faced, unfortunately. I mean, I was personally was surprised by how much of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
there is.
I'm I'm surprised to hear about it, and this is very eye-opening and very informative education-wise,
Yeah,
again, because I didn't really know much about service dogs. I mean, I knew enough to know, like what you said, that, like, they needed a disability and that there's a difference between service animals and emotional support animals, but, there are things that just not being in that end, I've never, seen it, and you pointed out to me, I think when we met, that it is hard for, people with service animals to find a job. That was something that I didn't think about, but now that I think about it now, like every time I've ever seen a service animal working, it was never, an employee. I don't know that I've ever seen somebody working in an employee type situation where they had a service animal. It's always been, out and about,
right,
just them shopping or doing something like that. So, I mean, those are things that I think people really need to learn about because it's not fair. It's not right for people to treat
right.
you badly or anybody with a disability badly just because they don't understand it.
Well,
You
and
shouldn't have to deal with that.
I will say too, the ADA is the big governing thing about service animals. They're the ones who determine what a service animal can be, and, public access rights and all that stuff. And if you would like more information, you can always go to ada.gov, and they have links to the two other big things that talk about service animals and whatnot. But ada.gov has an excellent page about service animals to explain exactly what's going on there. One thing that they
Yeah.
don't cover is employment. If I did
Yeah.
get hired, my employer would have to either allow my service animal, or they have to accommodate my disability in another way that's acceptable. So, for instance, for PTSD, if they didn't allow Dozer to come with me, they could allow me the option to have a quiet space. So where if I get where I'm triggered or something, I can go and be calm and quiet without penalty. Or
Yeah.
extra mental health days, things like that. So there are other accommodations. And the reason for this is because service animals are allowed to go anywhere the public can go. When you're working, you go in places of that business where the public can't go. So,
Yeah.
and there are a few exceptions. I can't bring him everywhere. There are a few exceptions as to places that can tell me no legally, but Walmart's not one of them.
Yeah.
But really, with employment, they have to be able to protect employers to some degree. And I really wish that employers would kind of meet people like me halfway and be like, okay, you know what? If I'm a Walmart greeter, maybe it actually will help them because there's a dog there. And maybe people will feel like they can't cause trouble because there's a dog there, even though the
Yeah.
dog won't do anything, it puts on a better
They don't
front.
know that.
But like, what harm is it if I sit there with my service dog? I mean, there's people sitting in chairs at the beginning of Walmart to say hi to you anyway. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
And I just wish there was a little more understanding from employers.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about business things.
Sure.
I know you said that this wasn't your strongest suit, the business end of it. You are very, very clearly really good at what you do. So, when you were first starting out, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in turning it into a business and being successful with it?
Sure. So the very first challenge, what for me was, how do I write a business plan? Because to me, I had seen so many examples that, like, how do I get that research, and how do I know these numbers, and how do I just guess this stuff, and like where does all this stuff come from? And I was really scared about, like, I'm going to screw that up, but they had really great people helping me, and they actually have a service, in case you'd like to know that.
When you say they, can you remind us who you're
So
talking about?
Yeah, so vocational rehab actually pairs you with a company called Portals. And Portals, they do a lot of things. Like they provided the market research, but I had an advisor through him. His name was Gerald.
Okay.
Very wonderful. I could call him anytime, but all that's supplied by vocational rehab. And I don't know if Portals just works with vocational rehab or not, but basically, he was my go to guy. He helped make sure that any funding that vocational rehab was providing would go where it needed to go. He helped me make decisions. He would sit there and talk to me about what I should put in my report, helped me prepare for meetings, everything. So he was the know how. Vocational rehab was more focused on helping me to progress to a point where I didn't need services, and Portals is focused on making sure I have the appropriate training and skills to maintain. And it was a really nice system. I have to
Yeah.
commend them on their work. I think that the program, as I went through it, was very beneficial and I did learn a lot.
Yeah.
So when I say they, I'm mostly referring to the people at Portals that I worked with. There were two, but like I said, Gerald was my main person.
Yeah.
And they helped me, they sent me a document that was like an outline so then I could
Yeah.
just kind of fill things in how I needed, and he'd go over
Mhm.
it and we'd share it. So he'd help me plug things in and whatnot and make realistic numbers. And I didn't know how to get my business license and whatnot, but I'll tell you what, we got the business license set up through an attorney and everything. Nothing felt real until I ordered my print materials for marketing. And when that started showing up at my door, I'm like, huh, I have a business now. If the
Wow.
I had the business, I had the LLC license by then, but it
Yeah.
didn't feel real. And every step of the way, it was scary because I've never done that before.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was going to go okay. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. I did have to present to the head of the vocational rehab small business department, as well as several others. And I think getting my business license was scarier than that.
Yeah.
But I had to present in order for them to decide to support the business.
Yeah.
And I did well. Gerald, again, he was able to help. If I didn't have an answer, he could help me. But that really didn't bother me as much as I think that was a big hump for a lot of people that I've spoken to that have gone through similar programs. And for me, that was more like, okay, it's a little nerve wracking, but not bad. But the idea that I'm going to be in charge of all this stuff and I'm going to have to organize it and I'm going to have to get all this stuff and make sure I follow all those rules. And I was just afraid that I would miss something or forget something or screw it up
Yeah.
somehow. So I guess in answer to your question, every step has been, it's like going down a road where you just have one brick wall after another. And I just kept finding the door.
Good. I think you're doing great. I mean,
Thanks.
like you said, everything that you do that is new is going to be scary because it's new. That doesn't mean you can't do
Yes.
it. It just means that maybe you have to, go around the wall, like
Yes.
you said, find a door. So I think you're doing great. How long? I know you said like within, what would you say, a month or something like that with one post, you had, I don't know, 30 people.
Yeah.
But after I mean, that was honestly before you started the business, wasn't it?
Yeah, so then technically it was considered a hobby because
Okay.
it's pretty much what it was. I honestly had expected maybe two people to contact me. So I was rather surprised when my phone started blowing up, but that's okay. I loved it. I still love it.
Uh,
And yeah,
it's a good problem to have.
yes.
So after you had your license, right? Was business like steady like from the get-go, or was there like a little bit of a learning period or anything like that? So my question that I have on my paper here is how long before you started making consistent income with your business?
So with training, it's very seasonal. So
Yeah.
I tend to make my best income at the beginning of the school year, end of the summer. We do a lot of events, so we have a lot more outreach. And then also, people are starting to settle down, they're getting into school routines. The holidays are coming up and they want well behaved dogs. Their puppies have been with them long enough. All the things are just kind of coming together.
Yeah.
I will tell you the first year I trained, despite the fact that I had 30 clients at one point in time, that winter, I had one client over the winter. And that was okay. Now I will say that my numbers are finally getting to a point where I have a consistent, reliable income so far throughout the year. Every year it gets a little bit better and a little bit better during those slow
Yeah.
seasons. Once Thanksgiving hits, my numbers really start slowing down because everyone's busy with the holidays. They're going on vacation, they're doing the things. And I have a lot of people who are like, okay, I really want to pick up training in the spring again when we can be outside and go to the parks and do the. because
Mhm.
I tell my clients I don't want to train in a manufactured environment. I don't want to train where everything's perfect. I want the distractions. I want to make sure that you can do what you need to do where you need to do it. And so that means sometimes dealing with the weather. So I would say in
Yeah.
about 2 years, I've gotten to a point where I feel like my business is definitely sustainable year round. It's no longer
Yeah.
where we're dropping off so much that I feel like I don't have a business anymore, which I don't think
Mhm.
is too bad for a business that for everyone is very seasonal.
Yeah. That's so great. You're doing a great job, Grace.
Thanks.
What's one thing you wish you knew when you got started?
Oh, gee. Wish I knew everything before I got started.
Right?
I wish that I would have understood the amount that adding a boarding and daycare program and having that brick and mortar would have really bolstered that income in the beginning. My focus was training, and I was afraid to do too much too quickly. I mean, as it was, I mean, you have a person who already suffers from anxiety doing something that provokes anxiety. I think I did a pretty darn good job just getting where I am.
Yeah.
But a part
I
of
agree.
me wonders how much better would it have been if I had said, let's just do this whole package all in one. The second thing that I would say that comes to mind is marketing. I wish I would have understood marketing a lot better. I'm a person, if you call me and talk to me on the phone, chances are really good you're going to end up going with me, because some things that I hear is that I'm one of the few trainers who will actually sit there and talk to you and explain what I do and why I do it. In some cases, people have called 5 or 6 trainers, and I'm the only one that answered the phone or that called
Yeah.
back or that texted. So I'm good in that way, but that requires somebody to already know who I am.
Yeah.
And I wish I had understood just how difficult and convoluted marketing can be, because every time you do it, every ad you put out, every site you go through, every single thing is so different,
Mhm.
and they change all the time in the rules and the algorithms. Oh my gosh, algorithms. Whew.
Yeah.
A thing I'd never thought of before now means everything. And
Right.
marketing is still an area where I have a little bit of a hard time, honestly. And I'm okay to say that, because we all have something that we need to improve on, and I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Last year I figured out social media, which is something I never really did much of.
Mhm.
And is it 100%? No, but it's there and it's getting
Yeah.
there, and I'm okay with that, because sometimes you have to remember to enjoy the journey. So, marketing, yeah, I wish I would have understood that better. I still wish I would understand it better, but it's a goal. It's not a
Yeah.
dream. It's a goal. I'm going to understand that better. I'm going to get better. I'm going to figure it out, because I'm not going to give up till I do.
That's a great outlook. That's
Thanks.
absolutely you're right. You mean you never really stop learning and unless you don't wanna learn at all, but if you don't wanna learn at
Right.
all, you're not gonna have a successful business, unless you're rich and you can pay somebody else to do it for you, but
Right.
that's not I don't know, is that the goal? Maybe it is for some people, but then I don't know how much fun you actually have doing that with.
Right. I mean, honestly, my goal with my business is to help humans and animals live better lives together. And
Yeah,
that's it. But I think if you ask me that same question a year from now, then I'll have a different answer, because I will have learned something
probably
that
will.
I wish I would have known. And that's just
Right?
kind of how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, you're right. It is supposed to work that way. So, have you done much networking in your business? And if so, how has that really helped your business?
So I have done some networking. Networking is a thing that I've never really been super familiar with, especially because I was out of the workforce for almost 10 years. So I mean, building those kind of connections and stuff, it's never been something that I've done really. However, I do meet people that are good for networking. People
Mhm.
sometimes that have skills that I need or whatever, or connections that I could use. And my big thing with it is I just try to be genuine. I'm not shy about the things that I need or hope from that relationship. And I'm also willing to share what I have to get there. So I'm hoping to continue networking and meeting more people. But I will say, shout out to Humane Indiana. I did go to an event, and the only other person who showed up was the CEO of Humane Indiana. And
Wow.
I tell you, from my Christian point of view, that's a God moment, okay?
Mhm.
That the only two people in the room, aside from the orchestrator of the event, is you and the person who literally has everything to do with animals. He ended up loving my business, and we've carried on a business relationship since then. It's been beneficial. That's one of the biggest successes in networking that I've had. I have also reached out to different politicians to help with getting good legislation to educate our community leaders and government officials and first responders about service animals. And so far, that has been valuable. That's still up and coming, but I'm starting to make waves.
Yeah.
And to me that's networking too, because I'm putting my stuff out there, my business out there, my ideas out there, and I'm hoping to get fruit from that. And that person is going to talk to about me to other people, and hopefully that will end in maybe a government contract, at the very least maybe legislation that works towards the goals that I've been trying to achieve. So I would
Yeah.
say that when I really put my mind to what I am hoping to do, I do pretty good at making those connections. I'm still
Yeah.
learning where I can find these connections, but I'm doing okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, we met at a networking event, so
Yes, we did. And
obviously that's working somewhere.
yeah, 1,000,000 cups actually. And I had a great time, and I had a great response from there. And I think
Yeah.
that, I mean, it's led to this, and that's fruitful. And I mean, I think you've seen me there. I go around, I talk to people, I share ideas. And I mean, I don't think
You
I'm bad
do.
at networking. I'm just figuring it out as I go.
Yeah, and I would like to add that Dozer is always well behaved. It's almost like you don't even know he's there.
Thank you. And that is
He's a
kind of
very
the
good boy.
point.
Yeah,
So
you did really good at training him.
thank you. He's currently, in
Um,
case you're wondering, he's currently curled up sleeping on a chase lounger made for dogs.
Aw, how
So
cute. What is one business tool or app that you can't live without?
honestly, I use Google Docs a lot.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a little primitive, but for
Hey, I
one,
use them all the time too.
yeah, I mean, you can do pretty much anything on there that you can do with Word. It was a little bit of a learning curve because I always did Microsoft Word, but I can access that anywhere. I have it on my phone, so if
Mhm.
I'm with a client and they're like, "Hey, I can just send it. I can send forms to my clients." And it's great. Like, and it's free.
Yeah,
I mean, you run out of
right.
storage if you do too much, I'll tell you that much. But but that's okay. But like it's not, it's like Microsoft Word and whatnot, you have to pay so much for, and I understand that that's a business too, and I get it. But with Google, it's attached to my email. I can share documents. Even Google Photos allows me to share with my assistant who takes pictures and videos. And so we can actually use two phones and have a shared platform to share that stuff in.
Yeah.
So Google
Yeah,
Docs is like, and even the Google Sheets, you can just do all
the
your
whole Google
forms.
platform.
Yeah, it just does everything for you. And it's, I mean, I don't know, I like it. So that's maybe someday
I
I'll
love it.
upgrade, but it's just
Yeah, and that's what you need as a business owner. Like, don't overcomplicate things. Like, you're absolutely right. That is something that I use every day on my business too. But you actually said something that reminded me of another question that I wanted to ask. So, you mentioned having an assistant. So, tell us about, your any employees you have, your assistant, what she does, and kind of your goals for the future with your business. What's your vision?
so I have an assistant named Kim. She's actually a neighbor of mine and has been a friend of mine for a while. And she has disabilities. And one of the things is that she doesn't drive. She has a
Okay.
really hard time getting or keeping a job because of these disabilities. And as I was kind of growing, I was playing with social media, and I'm like, it's really hard to train animals and take your own pictures and videos. And that's rude to ask a client to, like, here, you know what, here, take this video for me. So, it's kind of
Right.
unprofessional. So I called Kim up one day, and I'm just like, hey, you know what? I really need this like thing. And every so often I need somebody to hold a leash or knock on a door or whatever. Like, can you come and do that for me? I mean, she
Yeah.
lives literally two doors down from me. So all I got to do is just, I mean, meet her at the car, and then we go and we do our thing. And she told me she has no idea what she's doing. So, like, okay. We gave it a trial period. She just sort of tested it out. I made sure she was comfortable with the animals that we were seeing, and she learned a lot.
Yeah.
And when it got to a point where she was getting consistently things that I felt like I could use, we talked about paying. So she's actually an independent contractor with me, which gives her a lot more flexibility with her schedule. And because I only have one employee, it kind of works a little easier on the business side of things as well. And she comes with me. She's quiet as a mouse, but she helps me do. I mean, if I'm having a hard time, I can say, you know what, Kim, this joint is really hurting today. And So can you try to make sure? And she always picks up the slack 100%. I have a lot of clients who tell me they just think she's real nice, and they enjoy her quite a bit. But
Yeah. Mm.
if we're working with reactivity, she's able to hold Dozer's leash so that I can focus 100% on my client and that reactive dog, and she knows what to do. She follows my directions wonderfully, and then when she's able to, we ask every client for permission, of course, but she takes pictures and videos. Some we use online, some we use for research, or to help, like if there's a reactive dog, it's nice to have that video of how they are so we can measure how far we've come, and I can look at it or use it for training if I ever working with anyone else. So she does a
Yeah.
lot of things. I mean, in the summer, I think her biggest job is making sure I don't leave my water bottle behind, but that's okay. She makes it so that way I can only focus on the client. And anything that's not focusing on the client, she can handle it. She does an absolutely wonderful job. And I can tell you there's not a single dog where she's looked at me and said, I'm afraid to go there. We've had dogs that wanted to eat both of us, and she was nervous, of course, because, there's a dog that wants to eat you. But she has never once told me, I'm afraid to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go around there. Now, if we ever get a snake as a client, that's a different story. She's afraid of snakes. But I mean, I give her props because I mean, yeah, her dog, she has learned some things that she's been able to use for her own dog who has some behavior issues, but that's okay. She does great, and I'm very happy to have her. So she will be with me. It's coming on a year now that where we've been working together, and she's learned a lot, and we've learned to work together very well. She's the only employee that I have, and I'm happy to have her.
That's wonderful. What about your vision for the company? Where do you want to take it?
Oh, see, here's the thing about visions is that it has no limit.
Yeah.
I'm a big
What
dreamer.
is your realistic goals for your
My
business? Let me put it that way.
So let's do my realistic goal for the next couple of years would be to break into boarding and doggy daycare. I have ideas to run these things differently than anybody else. And that's kind of like a thing for me, is doing things different.
Yeah.
I would eventually really like to have a full service facility, which may include things like a vet, grooming, boarding, training. I would just like to do it all, because that's the big vision, that's the big goal. But that vision is growing all the time, and how realistic it is, well, I
Yeah.
think realistic just depends on how much you're willing to put towards it. And I think that
You're right.
my dreams are realistic because I'm not giving up until I'm in the grave. So as long as God keeps his whole heart beating, I'll just keep on doing stuff, and I'm going to improve and improve and improve to get as close to that vision in my head as I can.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Thank you.
All right. I just have, I think it's two more questions.
Okay.
This one I just kind of thought up as it's not written on my paper. Usually I interview moms, and you're not like the traditional mom. You are Dozer's mommy. But it's something that has been brought to my attention. People have told me maybe that they find a need for it. Well, I know that there's a need for it, but what would you recommend, or what advice would you give to somebody who is disabled, but they are still needing income, maybe more income than what their disability provides them, or they want to start a business, but maybe they have some fears, or maybe they're afraid of doing their own business because they don't want to get kicked off of their disability. What advice would you give to somebody who is in that situation, and how they could overcome it?
So, one thing that I've told myself over and over and over again is there's never a perfect time. And I think that goes for moms and disabled individuals, and really anyone. Moms can wait till the
Yeah.
kids are grown, but then there's always going to be something else. And here's the thing with people with disabilities is that where you are now is probably the best you're going to be. There are a few that might actually improve, but for the most part, how you are today is probably about the best you're going to be. Not to say you don't have worse days, but you're not really going to have better
Yeah.
ones unless you're in a worse one. So you might as well do what you can now. I feel
Yeah.
like if you can't do it on your own, or you're afraid to do it on your own, like I was and am still sometimes, and that's okay. Fear doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Fear just means proceed with
Yeah.
caution. So there are
Mhm.
resources out there available to you. When one resource says no, go find another one because there are so many things out there to help you. Just be realistic with yourself. For instance, with me, okay, I tell my clients all the time that if the weather is a certain way, like if it's 98 degrees and humid, I'm going to have so many asthma problems. I'm not going to be able to train outside. So pretty realistic
Yeah.
with my clients. I tell them, hey, you know what? If the weather's really bad, we're not training because it's not good for you and it's not good for me. So
Yeah.
know how you're going to tackle this. Create an action plan. A dream is a dream until you write it down, and then it's a goal. And just know, okay, you know what? If you're having this problem, how are you going to overcome it? What do you need to do? And how is that going to affect you or your business? What's plan B? And maybe you don't have those
Mhm.
answers, and that's okay. I didn't have those answers. I didn't know what it was going to look like running a business. But you need to be prepared mentally to face that. And you have to be honest with your limitations. I know that I am never going to be able to go running with a dog. Not in the books, not happening. But that's okay because I have an assistant who can run real good. So it's all good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, don't let what other people see and what other people think and what the doctors say and everything, don't let that be your prison. There's a door there. You gotta find it and you gotta just decide that you're gonna trust in yourself. And I'm not saying that you should disobey doctor's orders and everything, but what I'm saying is just because the doctor
Yeah.
says you're never gonna walk again doesn't mean you're never gonna walk again. People
Mhm.
surprise you all the time. Your imagination, what you wanna do, there's no limits. So just take the first steps, gather information, find an organization to help you, find a friend to help you, and then say, these are my problems. List them if you want. And how can I overcome each one? And if I can't overcome it, is it going to affect the business and how? And just decide that you're worth more than where you are now. You can do it. 100% hands down, mom,
Yeah.
disabled, anything, you can do it because I did it. And I'm the last person anyone would have
Yeah.
ever expected to own a business. And yet here I am. So that's
I
what
think
I
you're
would say.
doing absolutely wonderfully.
Thank you. Thank you
You
very
have a
much.
very motivational story, and I'm so happy that you're not afraid to share it because I think more people need to hear stories like yours. I mean, because like I said, I don't have a lot of, friends or experience with people with service animals, but I do know quite a few people who are on disability, and that's a common struggle that I see with them a lot. And being in
Yeah.
the industry that I am in, I've been told, well, can you help people make money who are on disability? And like I can, but I have also seen that a lot of the people who are stuck in that fear. And their main thing is, oh, well, if I make too much, I'm getting kicked off of disability. And then the same token, most people who are on disability aren't even getting enough to live
Right.
off of, but they think like the fact that they're getting disability is the end all be all. And if they're kicked off of disability, then that's the end of the world. But when you like put your hope in yourself and not in the disability system, your life can get way better than what it
Oh
is when
yeah.
you are on disability.
And
So,
I was scared of that too, but a lot of people don't know this. Disability actually has some really great programs to help you. For one thing, I can
yeah.
make over a certain amount of money, which is usually, up until recently, the amount of money that they considered a living wage was actually higher than what they're giving people. But if you make over that, you have, I think it's 9 months of trial period where your disability is not affected for 9 months of you going over that limit. And it's 9 months, I think, in a year. So, like, if in May I go over my limit and then I don't do it again until next year's June, then I still only have one trial period, in which case they'll record it that, okay, you went over your allowed limit, but I still got my full disability check. Once you use up all of those, then you go into the second phase, which is, and these are just things from when I've researched, so I encourage anyone who's listening to this, you can make an appointment, you can go into Social Security, and they will sit down and they will talk to you about all this stuff. They
Yeah.
will, and if you go through vocational rehab, they will actually have benefits query where they will go over every single benefit that you have and how it's going to be affected and what's affecting it and how to fix it and everything. I mean, it's great. But they actually have where for 5 years, if I ever need to get back on disability again, all I have to do is call them and say, I need to go back on disability. I say my disability gets worse, my heart issue gets worse, and I
Yeah.
can't work, and it all starts over again. And I don't have to reapply. I don't have to worry about getting denied. I have 5 years where I can
Wow.
determine whether or not I can work or not. And so, I mean, I will say it's scary, yeah, it's an income that you have relied on, that's been your only lifeline, and you've been told that you have to have that because you can't whatever. But like you
Yeah.
said, when you start saying, well, I can do this. I can do this one thing here. And maybe your business will take a long time before you even get to any of your trial work periods. And you'll find that you're still able to get
Mhm.
your disability to bolster your income, which coming from somebody who's been doing it, it's nice because then you can put more money back into that business. So is it scary
Yeah.
that you might get cut off? Sure. But guess what? That's okay because then you have the satisfaction of being over complete control of your funds, your money, what goes in, what goes
Yeah.
out, how much you can have in a savings account. And yeah, don't let it stop you. Just like I said, research, look into it. Ticket to Work program is what it's called, and it's really great. So I encourage anyone who's in
Yeah.
that situation to do their due diligence. You said I have a very interesting story. I was married and my husband was addicted to drugs, and that's why I have PTSD. When I left him, I had nothing. I lived with family. I had my service
Yeah.
dog. I had no money. All of our accounts had been emptied out. I had no credit. There's not a person who could have started in a lower position. I mean, at least I did have family to help me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't start from a position of having saved up for months or anything like that. I started in a position where if I didn't have my family, I would have lived on the streets. So I don't think people know that much about me to know that part. But if you just put your mind to it, you can do
Yeah.
it. You can crawl out of that hole. And it sucks and it's really hard when you're in that place. And I'm sorry for anyone that is, but here's hope that you can do better.
Yeah. Thank you for being strong enough to share that with us too. I know you had mentioned that the vocational rehab really, really helped you a lot. Do you know if vocational rehab is just in our local area, or is that like a nationwide program? Or, because, we have people listening that are all over. So I
Right.
just want to make sure that, I can give them proper information.
I don't want to guarantee that it's nationwide. I know that the vocational rehab, and they may even have privately owned, but the one that I went through is state funded.
Okay.
So the one that I was in Valpo. But the person I told you I had to present to, she was in Indianapolis, which is where their main
Okay.
headquarters is, and they go all through the state of Indiana. So I would like to think that every state has a vocational rehab, but I actually don't know the answer to that. I just know that it was state funded,
Mm.
which means that the funds probably came from the federal government, but it wasn't a federal thing. So it's not guaranteed to be in every
Yeah.
state. But if you look up on Google vocational rehabilitation, you may find some. We also in Indiana, we have Work One, which is a
Yeah. I've heard of Work One.
yeah, and that's a vocational rehab type program as well. I went through there when I was very young, just a teen, I guess not super, super young, but a teenager looking to find like vocational training. And they provided things for that at that time. I don't know too much about their program, but they are not the same program. So that tells you there that even in our area, we have two options that I personally know of. So Google search will do you wonders. Just vocational rehabilitation is the general name of the type of thing that you're looking for, and then you'll be able to see whether or not you have stuff for your state
Yeah.
or a privately owned or something like that. So
Yeah. And did you say that they helped you with startup funding too, or was that the other company?
yes, so they did help me us with startup funding. So I requested around $10,000 to help with different funds, and everything had to be labeled out. This is what I want. This is
Mhm.
what I mean. It was to a point literally where I'm on Amazon saying, okay, this costs this much. And so here's the number we're going to put. And then I had to present. And my presentation was to several people. And then a month later, I got an answer that yes, that they would provide that. It's not like they just deposited that money in my bank. We had an action plan that was in 3 steps. And so step one was, get the LLC. So they paid the lawyer. Some of these things they
Okay.
paid directly, like the lawyer they paid directly, the accountant they paid directly. Some of the things they reimbursed me for. And the decision was largely on can I afford that item? And then if I could, then I would pay for it, give them the receipt, fill out the authorization, and then they would reimburse my account for that. So like if it was like training tools and whatnot, that allowed me to basically go shopping for whatever I felt that I needed for training tools, and then they would just give me the lump sum instead of having to wait for them to purchase every individual item. So
Yeah.
it was very useful and allowed me a lot more autonomy, but I did have to have everything earmarked, and we had certain time frames for everything, so that way I wasn't doing too much too fast.
Yeah. Now, was that considered a grant or more of a loan?
It's a grant. I'm not
Okay.
required to pay it back.
That's
So
wonderful.
I will say when I did this, I was told that I was one of the cheapest people, as I wasn't asking for a lot. They said sometimes they get people that asking for $60,000 for equipment for
Yeah.
different things. And so my business, the startup, wasn't super bad, but they allowed me to really start saving money into the business account so that I could sustain myself in the future instead of always struggling.
Yeah. Do you know if vocational rehab, do they only work with people with disabilities, or is that a service they offer to anybody struggling and wants to make more of themselves?
So, the vocational rehab for the state, the one that I went through for my business, you have to go in, you have an interview and you apply. And what they do is you have to be disabled enough to where they feel that you cannot find work successfully on your own, but not so disabled that they don't feel that you can work. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're, say, a quadriplegic who's mostly brain dead, there's nothing that you can really do, right? And I'm not saying that a
Yeah.
quadriplegic itself would not qualify. I've heard of a lot of different stories that were really amazing, but you have to have the capability of being successful to some degree. And that just makes sense. And so they determine that. And once they determine that, then you're approved. Now, whether or not you go into the small business or the regular, it just depends on what you want. If you have something that you want to do for the small business and a reason why you qualify to do that thing, then then you can begin the process, and they do lots of interviews with you and talking through it to make sure that it's a solid plan. So work one, I'm not sure. When I was a lot younger, I don't remember going through that as a disability. I just was somebody who didn't have the funds to do what I needed to do, so i
Yeah. I've
I
heard of
don't know
work one
how they
helping people who
work.
get, like, laid off too.
Right. So, whatever program you go through, if you don't think you qualify, try it anyway because you might. And that's why I say if
Yeah.
one says no, try another one, because just because
Yeah.
you don't meet the qualifications for one doesn't mean you can't. Don't let one person stop you from whatever it is that you want to do. So, unfortunately for me, it was
Yeah.
the first one that I applied to, I got, but that doesn't mean that it's always been that way. So I don't want anyone to think, "Oh, well, this one turned me down, all of them will." That's not how that works at all.
Yeah. Well, I don't wanna take too much of your time. I just have one last question,
Sure.
and that is, do you have any, like, links or anything that you wanna share? Or, how can people get a hold of you if they wanna book you? Do you have a website or anything like that?
So,
And I can put everything in the description too.
okay. So if you search Dozer's Pet Academy, you can actually find me on Google. There is a link to my website, which is dozerspetacademy.com. There's no apostrophe for the S on that. I'm also on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, all under Dozer's Pet Academy. So, pretty well, you put the name of my business into anything and I should come up. So,
That's great. Well, I you did absolutely wonderful, and like I said, your
thanks.
story is really, really inspirational, and I thank you for being vulnerable with us because I know that that's not always easy, but you seem like you are, not using that as something to hold you back, and you seem like you are using it as a source of inspiration and motivation to guide you. So, really good job doing that, and I look forward to hearing more about your business and working with you in the future. So, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity, and I hope that my story inspires someone out there, because we can do so much more when we stop letting people tell us no.